The ultimatum. The Grand Hall of the Galactic Consortium fell silent as Captain Elena Vasquez strode toward the central podium. Her footsteps echoed against the polished obsidian floor, drawing the attention of over 300 alien representatives who watched with a mixture of curiosity and thinly veiled disdain. The hall itself was a testament to the consortium's ancient power, a massive chamber carved from a single asteroid, its ceiling a transparent dome that revealed the swirling nebula beyond. The oldest species occupy the highest tiers, while newer members like humanity were relegated to the lowest rings, physically and symbolically beneath their betters. Elena's simple Navy uniform stood in stark contrast to the elaborate ceremonial attire worn by most representatives. Her only adornment was the United Earth Alliance insignia, a silver earth encircled by stars, pinned above her heart. At 43, she had the weathered face of someone who had seen too much conflict and too little progress. "The representative from Earth may address the consortium," announced High Chancellor Xorix, a vexor whose translucent, jellyfish-like body pulsed with bioluminescent patterns. The vexor had been among the first spacefaring races, claiming a history spanning 80,000 years. Elena activated her universal translator and squared her shoulders. "Esteemed members of the Galactic Consortium, I stand before you not merely as Earth's representative, but as the voice of humanity's 37 colony worlds and 116 outposts across 7 sectors." She paused, surveying the chamber. For 73 years, humanity has been a member of this august body. In that time, we have contributed 38 major technological advancements to the shared knowledge pool, established 17 emergency response centers in formerly unserviced regions, and answered 85 distress calls from member worlds when no other assistance was forthcoming. A low murmur rippled through the chamber. Elder Thon of the Moravian Collective, insectoid beings renowned for their logic, raised a segmented limb. While these contributions are noted, Representative Vasquez, they hardly compare to the millennia of development other species have provided. Humanity's rapid expansion concerns many. You've colonized more worlds in 7 decades than the Druithi managed in 7 centuries. Elena nodded, having expected this argument. With respect, Elder Thon, our rapid expansion came at the invitation of this very consortium. When the Krell plague devastated the Outer Rim worlds 20 years ago, it was human medical ships that responded first. When the tidally locked worlds faced resource shortages, we established the supply chains that now keep 16 billion beings fed. We did these things not for glory but because they needed doing. She tapped her datapad, and holographic displays materialized around the chamber, showing human vessels delivering supplies, human engineers maintaining consortium infrastructure, and human doctors treating alien children. Yet despite these contributions, humanity's petition for equal representation has been denied for the 12th consecutive time. We remain relegated to observer status, our votes counting for 1/3 the weight of full members. High Chancellor Xorix's tendrils rippled in what humans had learned was a gesture of dismissal. The consortium's standards for advancement are based on historical precedent. No species has advanced from observer to full member in less than 200 years. Your impatience is noted but does not warrant special consideration. Elena's expression hardened. Then perhaps it's time those precedents were questioned. The galaxy doesn't operate on the same timescale it did when the consortium was founded. Threats emerge and evolve faster than your deliberative processes can address them. Are you suggesting the wisdom of 50,000 years of galactic governance is insufficient? Asked Ambassador Kalath of the Joruvian Empire, his scaled face contorting in affront. I'm suggesting it's incomplete, Elena replied coolly. The consortium was founded on principles of mutual respect and cooperation. Yet humanity has watched as our proposals were dismissed not on their merits, but on the age of our civilization. Last year, when we presented shield technology that could have protected the Hylian colonies from solar flares, it was placed in review until after the disaster had already claimed lives. She looked directly at Kalath. Lives that could have been saved. The chamber erupted in outrage. Various species communicated their displeasure through sounds ranging from high-pitched whistles to subsonic rumbles that humans could feel more than hear. High Chancellor Xorix struck his resonant staff against the floor 3 times, restoring order. Representative Vasquez, you test the patience of this body. What exactly does Earth demand? Elena's voice remained steady. Not a demand, Chancellor. An ultimatum. The word hung in the air like a physical presence. Even the eldest races shifted uncomfortably. Ultimatums were not given in the consortium. They were a diplomatic taboo. The United Earth Alliance and all human territories will withdraw completely from the Galactic Consortium unless we are granted full member status within 30 standard days. This is not a negotiation. Gasps and exclamations rippled through the assembly. Such a move was unprecedented in consortium history. You would isolate your species from the collective knowledge and protection of the galaxy's oldest civilizations, asked Elder Thon, his compound eyes gleaming with what might have been concern or calculation. We would choose self-determination over perpetual subservience, Elena replied. Humanity has faced isolation before. We survived on a single world for thousands of years, through ice ages, plagues, and our own destructive tendencies. We will survive this too. She reached into her pocket and placed a small metallic cube on the podium. It hummed softly, projecting a holographic Earth that slowly rotated. This is a quantum-entangled communication device. When the consortium is prepared to recognize humanity as equals, activate it. Until then, all human diplomatic, military, and support personnel will begin withdrawing from consortium space within 24 hours. Elena stepped away from the podium, her message delivered. As she walked toward the exit, the representatives erupted into chaos, some demanding she be stopped, others calling for emergency sessions. But no one moved to physically detain her. No one quite believed humans would actually go through with such a drastic measure. As the massive doors closed behind her, Elena allowed herself a grim smile. The consortium would soon discover just how serious humanity was. Outside in the docking bay, Admiral James Chen waited beside their shuttle. His weathered face showed concern as Elena approached. Well, he asked quietly. Exactly as we expected, Elena replied. They dismissed the ultimatum. Prepare to initiate Operation Silent Tide. Chen nodded gravely. The withdrawal vessels are already on standby. The first human installations will go dark within 12 hours. As their shuttle departed from the massive consortium station, Elena watched the gleaming structure diminish in the viewport. The consortium thought they were calling humanity's bluff. They had no idea what was coming. Throughout human territory, a carefully orchestrated plan was already unfolding. Military vessels began disengaging from joint patrols. Research stations initiated data transfers back to Earth-controlled servers. Support personnel started systematic shutdowns of human-designed systems throughout consortium space. The galaxy was about to learn just how deeply humanity had integrated into its infrastructure and what would happen when they stepped away. The silent power. 3 weeks after humanity's ultimatum, the first major crisis struck at the heart of consortium territory. On Luxeville Prime, home to the Jeruvian Empire's central banking system, the environmental regulators failed catastrophically. Temperatures plummeted in the artificially maintained atmosphere, threatening billions in assets and thousands of lives. Ambassador Keleth found himself in the humiliating position of addressing an emergency session of the consortium's inner circle. The systems are human-designed, he admitted reluctantly. Our engineers cannot access the core protocols. The fail-safes that should have engaged are responding only to human authorization codes. High Chancellor Xorix's bioluminescence pulsed erratically, a sign of extreme agitation among the Vexer. Have you contacted Earth? They acknowledge our messages but say they cannot assist remotely due to security protocols established by the consortium itself. Caleth's scales darkened in frustration. They remind us that human technical teams are no longer authorized to operate in consortium space as per the withdrawal agreement. This was merely the beginning. Across the galaxy, systems that had functioned flawlessly for decades began failing in subtle but critical ways. The quantum communication network that linked major worlds experienced increasing delays and data corruption. Defense grids protecting vulnerable planets from space debris showed unexplained gaps in coverage. Medical facilities found their diagnostic systems giving increasingly erratic results. None of these failures were catastrophic on their own, but their cumulative effect was devastating. The sophisticated infrastructure that the consortium had taken for granted was revealing itself to be far more dependent on human innovation and maintenance than anyone had realized. On Rigel Station, a major trade hub connecting 17 different species, food production facilities began failing one by one. Station Administrator Praveen Sharma, one of the few humans who had remained behind, found himself surrounded by alien officials begging for assistance. "I'm sorry," he explained, genuine regret in his voice. "I'm not authorized to intervene without official consortium approval for human technical operations. My presence here is strictly observational." Elder Than's representative, a younger Moravian named Zeeks, chittered in frustration. "These systems functioned perfectly for 15 years before your withdrawal." Sharma nodded. "Yes, because human maintenance teams performed weekly diagnostics and updates. The operations manuals we provided explain this requirement clearly." "The manuals are incomprehensible," Zeeks protested. "They reference human intuitive leaps that make no logical sense to our engineers." "That's because human engineering often builds in redundancies and workarounds based on anticipated problems rather than purely logical progressions," Sharma explained. "We call it defensive design, planning for failures before they happen." Throughout consortium space, similar conversations were taking place as the true extent of humanity's integration into galactic infrastructure became apparent. Humans hadn't just contributed technology, they had become its caretakers, anticipating problems and quietly solving them before they escalated. In the Grand Hall of the consortium, an emergency session had been convened. Representatives from 87 worlds reported critical failures or impending system collapses. High Chancellor Xorix finally broached the subject no one wanted to address. "We must consider activating the communication device left by Representative Vasquez." Elder Than's compound eyes flickered with indignation. Capitulating to their demands would undermine 50,000 years of established protocol. No species has ever dictated terms to the consortium. Ambassador Keleth raised a clawed hand. "With respect, Elder, no species has ever withdrawn from the consortium either. We find ourselves in unprecedented territory." Far from this debate, aboard the UEA flagship Defiant, Elena Vasquez reviewed reports from across former consortium territory. Surveillance drones, small enough to escape notice, transmitted data on deteriorating conditions. She took no pleasure in the suffering their withdrawal was causing, but decades of diplomatic efforts had failed. This was the only language the consortium seemed to understand. Admiral Chen entered her office, his expression grim. "The Proxima colony is reporting the consortium has sent ships to their sector. Not military vessels, but they're scanning our defensive systems." Elena nodded. "As expected, they're trying to reverse engineer our technology rather than acknowledge their dependence on it." "It won't work," Chen stated confidently. "Our systems are designed with organic decision-making components. The hardware is useless without the human operators who understand the intuitive interfaces." An alert chimed on Elena's console. She checked the notification, and a small smile played at the corner of her mouth. "They've activated the quantum communicator," she announced. Within the hour, Elena once again stood before the Galactic Consortium, though this time she appeared as a hologram rather than in person. The chamber seemed subdued compared to her last visit. The elaborate displays of wealth and power noticeably diminished in the face of systems failures and resource shortages. High Chancellor Xorix addressed her without preamble. "Representative Vasquez, the consortium is prepared to discuss the terms of humanity's petition for advancement to full member status." Elena maintained her diplomatic composure despite the victory this represented. "I'm pleased to hear that, Chancellor. However, Our terms have evolved since our withdrawal. Humanity now seeks not just full member status, but proportional representation based on our actual contributions to consortium infrastructure and defense. Outrage rippled through the chamber, but it lacked the previous intensity. Reality had tempered their arrogance. Elder Thon's voice rose above the murmurs. You would hold the galaxy hostage to force political concessions. This is not the action of a civilization ready for greater authority. Alina's hologram turned to face the ancient insectoid. With respect, Elder, we are not holding anyone hostage. We simply stepped back from systems we created and maintained, systems you dismissed as simplistic and unimportant until they began to fail. The crisis you face is of your own making, born from underestimating both our contributions and your dependence on them. Ambassador Keleth spoke up, surprising many. The representative speaks truth we have been reluctant to acknowledge. My own world has suffered greatly in humanity's absence. Our prejudice blinded us to their importance in our shared infrastructure. High Chancellor Xorix's bioluminescence pulsed in patterns of deliberation. Finally, he spoke. The consortium is prepared to offer humanity full member status, effective immediately. That is a welcome starting point, Alina replied. But going forward, we propose a new framework for the consortium itself, one that values innovation and active contribution over mere historical longevity. Age brings wisdom, certainly, but adaptability ensures survival. As the negotiations proceeded, humanity's ships remained in position, their systems primed for either peaceful reintegration or continued isolation. The balance of power had shifted, not through violence or threats, but through the simple demonstration of worth. 3 months later, Alina Vasquez stood physically present in the redesigned consortium hall. The hierarchical tiers had been replaced with a circular arrangement where all representatives sat at equal height. The ancestral voices, as the eldest races were now called, retained advisory positions of honor, but no longer held unilateral veto power over innovations and advancement. As she took her seat among the newly formed Council of Active Contributors, Alina reflected on humanity's journey. They had come to the stars hoping to find mentors and partners, only to discover they needed to force their way to the table. It wasn't the welcome they had imagined, but perhaps it was the one they needed. A crucible that confirmed humanity's rightful place among the stars was not as students or servants, but as essential innovators who saw solutions where others saw only problems. The stars themselves seemed to shine more brightly on this new era of galactic cooperation, one where age and innovation had finally found their balance.